Feisty, overconfident, impulsive, Mushu is a very ambitious lizard.
Dragon, not lizard. I don't do that tongue thing.
Oh, sorry, dragon. Mushu's voice actor is Eddie Murphy. But you know that guy? Here's some highlights. But who may not be widely known is his animator. So who could have brought such a fiery dragon to life? Let's find out. Tom Bancroft was born on July 31st, 1967, which, by the way, is National Avocado Day, in Long Beach, California, with his twin brother Tony, who you can learn more about here. Growing up, the two were very competitive with art.
We did kind of push each other, and so that led to us kind of falling into animation just out of high school. We'd already been doing comic strips for the school newspaper. We loved comic strips growing up, and it was kind of like the second heyday of comic strips at the time with Garfield and Peanuts, the Charlie Brown and Snoopy. They were still out and big, but then right around the corner was Calvin and Hobbes and The Far Side and things like that were starting to come out when we were just a little bit older. It really was kind of still a viable, what looked like a great career. But as we were just coming out of high school and stuff, it was starting to be clear that that wasn't necessarily going to be a great career. And really, fortunately, we got out of it because the newspapers started going away and things like that. And so what we did was we discovered animation. And so we were already doing cartooning. We were already in love with drawing characters. But then a friend of ours said, hey, I did this clay animated film, and this was just out of high school. And he showed it to us, and we were just amazed. He's showing us this thing he did, and he did it with a video camera, not video even. It was a film camera, a Super 8 camera, and he'd done it one frame at a time. It was just some clay animation of a little film that he'd made. But we were just amazed, going, oh my gosh, this means that we were huge Star Wars fans, and like that whole, we thought we were going to get into the effects industry because that was brand new at the time, that it was really taking off and people were getting into visual effects and stuff. And we thought, oh, well, they need stop motion animators and stuff. So we started to go down that road and made a little stop motion animated film and all that. And it just got us hooked to see all of a sudden this thing we did come to life. And then somehow it kind of hit us that, wait a second, we already like to draw. Why are we doing this whole clay thing and have to fight gravity all the time and stuff? And they're just falling to pieces as we do this film. We could draw this. And so it hit us, and we found out about CalArts, which is California Institute of the Arts. And it was just down the road. We lived in California, so it wasn't that far.
Nice.
And we applied, and the craziest part is that they let us in.
While at CalArts, Tom and Tony studied character animation. After about 1.5 years, however, the college proved to be too expensive, much like avocados. Luckily, Disney was looking for fresh talent.
Well, Disney came to CalArts when we were just in the middle of our second year there, our sophomore year. They came and they were looking for people to staff their Florida studio that they were just building at the time. So this was back in 1988. And that would end up being the Disney MGM studios, which is now called the Hollywood Studios. But that studio was going to have an animation, a little working animation studio there. And so Disney really wanted new, fresh blood to go staff that, basically inexpensive labor, to go staff that and make little, what they told us at the time was going to be Mickey Mouse shorts. And it soon switched to Roger Rabbit shorts because the first feature came out and it did pretty well. But anyway, when they came, they were looking for at portfolios of juniors and seniors, but they let the sophomores show, but they said they wouldn't accept anybody that were sophomores. But Tony and I really needed to get out of school because we couldn't afford it. It was so expensive. So we were thinking about not going back our second semester of our sophomore year. So it was kind of an all or nothing ditch effort that we put all of our time into our portfolios and put them in there, just hoping that they would change their mind. And sure enough, they did. They accepted us into the Disney internship. And that was a 9-week program in the California studio, and we were trained by a lot of the animators there. We had lectures by Glenn Keane, Mark Henn. We each had a mentor that was one of the Disney animators, and at the time they were making The Little Mermaid. So we got to see that firsthand being made. And it was just a great time to be at Disney. So we both passed that internship, and that meant we got shipped off to Florida to staff that studio.
Tom's first project was Roller Coaster Rabbit, followed by Rescuers Down Under.
And on that, I was an assistant animator, which means I was in the cleanup department, and I worked with, I was matched up with an animator, and that's how we set up the Florida studio. Was we were in small units, so that there was one animator, an assistant animator, and then a breakdown and in-betweener. So the animator would do the rough drawings. He would give it to his assistant animator, in this case me, and I would take Mark Henn's. I was working with Mark Henn. He was my animator, and I would take his drawings and clean them up. So I would just take the key drawings, and then I would leave the in-betweens undone and give those to the in-betweener that was working with me. So it was kind of an assembly line. But it was an honor to work with Mark Henn. He was one of probably the top 10 Disney animators, at least in the second golden age of Disney animation.
On Beauty and the Beast, Tom started animating.
I didn't do anything good. It was all just, let's go kill the beast. It was all these crowds, people with pitchforks and torches. And I did a couple, like at a Cogsworth scene that's kind of memorable and stuff. But most of the time it was beginning animator stuff. They don't give you the good stuff when you're first starting out.
On Disney's next film, Aladdin, Tom worked on animating Iago. And in 1991, he worked on his second Roger Rabbit short, Trail Mix-Up. Yeah, got it. Stop the forest from being on fire. No. Oh, man.
Have a nice lunch, boys. And remember, only you can prevent forest fires.
When Lion King rolled around, Tom worked on young Simba, and on Pocahontas, he worked on the title character. I guess you could say he just couldn't wait to be king of animation. And he never really saw what was waiting for him just around the riverbed. Ha! Tom's big break came with the film Mulan, for which he supervised the little dragon with a big personality, Mushu.
I am the guardian of lost souls. I am the powerful, the pleasurable, the indestructible Mushu.
You know, people always say they look at Mushu, his acting and stuff, and they go, oh man, you nailed Eddie Murphy. It looks just like him, or acts just like him. It obviously doesn't look just like him, but, you know, acts just like him. And I don't really see that as much. It's funny because I did look at a lot of Eddie Murphy stand-up, his SNL stuff, and I looked at Trading Places and watched a lot of it, and even went to a couple of the voice recordings of Eddie doing the Mushu voice. But in the end, it's funny because I wasn't, and I had some photo reference of Eddie around my desk, but in the end, I wasn't really thinking, how would Eddie do this? You know, that idea dropped out of my head almost as soon as I started animating, and it really becomes, how would Mushu do this? You know, hopefully. But in the end, I always say that Mushu was kind of part Eddie, part me, because so much of how I move and act and talk and things like that, and that, you know, when I first think of an acting, you know, I'm listening to an Eddie Murphy dialogue where he says, dragon, I don't do that tongue thing. And then he does his tongue. I'm listening to that line over and over again with no picture, just listening to the audio, and I have to then thumbnail out what I think that action, how Mushu would say that line, but I'm not looking at Eddie Murphy saying that line, I'm just listening to it. So I have to think of, you know, really, I'm thinking of myself acting it out, and that's what I start doing. I act it out in front of the mirror, and I start doing, okay, what would I do if I said that line, you know, and I'm this sassy, you know, dragon. And so, but it's really my acting experiences and my influences that are really what I'm drawing on more so than even Eddie Murphy at that moment. So anyway, a good thing is to say that it is kind of Eddie and me put together, which is a really odd combination. Mushu was the first time where I really got a big opportunity, and so I got to do his final character design. I got to work with the sculptor on the sculpture that they created for him. I even went over drawings for the McDonald's Happy Meal toy. So I even looked at merchandising artwork for him. And then, of course, for the film, I was able to do a lot of the. I supervised about 5 or 6 animators that animated Mushu, and then I did a lot of the key animation of the character. So that's the hard thing about being a supervising animator, at least in those days at Disney, was that you were expected to not only be, the guy that could draw that character the best, hopefully, or you should be, but you also have a group of people that you're probably supervising as far as animators, and then clean up on making sure that their versions of Mushu look just like yours, or the on-model one, and that their acting is right. And so you're reviewing every scene that they're doing also. Plus, you have to carve out time to do the majority, really, of the Mushu animation. They expect the supervisor to do a lot of the key moments of Mushu, and therefore they expect you to do most of the animation of that character, even though those 5 or 6 other animators probably have more time in their day to do it than you do. So it meant a lot of late nights and weekends, and it was a and like I said, it was partially one of the things that got me sick, probably, but I will say that I'm really proud of that character and how it came out. It was definitely some of my best work.
Porridge, and it's happy to see you. Hey, get out of there. You're gonna make people sick.
Although his work on Mushu is stunning and full of personality, the stress put on him throughout the process made him sick.
That was a real draining experience, and it was for about 2.5 years that I worked on that character. And then I immediately went into Tarzan and did a small sequence with the adult elephants, talking about, piranhas. I did that segment in Tarzan, and it was just back to back. And also while I was doing Tarzan, I was doing that at night while I was during the day doing an animated short called John Henry that Mark Henn ended up directing. And so I was one of the supervising animators on that. And then at night doing Tarzan to help out California, because they were doing that film, and I was one of the few people in Florida working on it. But I just didn't say no to anything. And I ended up getting sick and getting meningitis, and a lot of that was stress-induced.
It was a turning point for Tom. Although he had strived to work at Disney and climb the ladder, he began to realize that there were other opportunities out there. He heard of a Christian production company called Big Idea, and although he wasn't qualified for the positions they were hiring, he felt a pull towards that company. Eventually, he got hired and began to work on their hit series, VeggieTales.
Going to Big Idea after Disney, it was like you had to change my gears a little bit artistically, but the nice thing was it kind of harkened back to my first love, which was comic strips. Comic strips are a lot simplified, more cartoony drawing than say a Disney feature film. And so going back to doing that, it felt more like I was making comic strips when I was doing storyboards on VeggieTales. But the fun thing is that they're all acting because they don't have arms and legs. It's all facial expressions and how you pose that very simple shape. So much like the carpet in Aladdin, that is very much all about the performance of that shape and how you can, in using timing and things like that, and how you pose that shape, you can get a performance out of it. But these had faces, so that was even a little bit easier, so that was nice.
Tom worked on their first feature film, Jonah, a VeggieTales movie, and he worked on the Larry Boy TV series. Unfortunately, after only 2 years of working at Big Idea, the company went bankrupt. Tom returned to Disney and worked on Took and Brother Bear. However, when it came to the next movie, Disney didn't have a place for Tom. 1 year later, Disney closed its doors to outside talent. So Tom decided to branch out and start freelancing.
I set up my own company, Funny Pages Productions, and then we started looking, my wife and I, because I realized I wasn't going to continue with Disney, and that I could live wherever I wanted to because everything was through the internet. Because I was doing a lot of children's book illustrations with Disney Publishing and comic book stuff for Disney Adventures. It was all freelance stuff. I said, let's live where we want to live. And so we picked Franklin, Tennessee, which is where we live now. And so moved the company here, and I asked my best buddy at Disney, Rob Corley, who was also an animator, if he wanted to come with me. And because we've been talking about it for a while, and he said yeah. He ended up coming, especially because then they decided to shut down the studio it was nice because we already kind of had a plan. So we moved out here to Franklin and did that for the last 8 years. Have had Funny Pages Productions, and I just recently, about a year and a half ago, I left that to Rob, and now I'm a freelancer. I work at home and do all kinds of different things, but my main job is with CBN, Christian Broadcasting Network, and it's working on another Christian series that we helped relaunch, Rob and I, when we were doing Funny Pages. We did the pilot episode for, which is called Superbook, and it's a remake of their 80s series that they did that went around the world, and we've kind of re-updated it. Now it's computer animated, and we've redesigned the characters, and kind of has a anime feel to it, even though it's computer animation. So I've been the animation director and storyboard revisionist and head character designer for that. I also did some of my own books too. That was kind of one of the bigger things I've done in the last few years. Is I, besides illustrating a lot of children's books, almost 50 children's books over the years, I've also created my own books, which are how-to character design books. And so my first one's called Creating Characters with Personality. And then my newest one came out this last year. It's called Character Mentor. And both of those books are on training you on how to design your characters, but also how to bring them to life, through staging and expressions and posing. So those books have both done really well. And actually, the first book, Creating Characters, is used around the world in a lot of the animation schools for their character design class.
In 2014, Tom and his brother Tony created a wonderful podcast called Bancroft Brothers, where they talk about the animation industry and interview animation professionals. Most recently, Tom has started Pencilish Animation Studios, where he and a team of artists will be working on a whole new set of projects. Tom is a very versatile artist. He's animated, illustrated, written books, hosts a podcast, worked on movies, television, and the list goes on and on. Ripe and versatile, just like an avocado. And I'm sure we all can't wait to see what he comes up with next.
All right, that's it. Dishonor. Dishonor on your whole family. Make a note of this. Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your cow.
Stop. I'm sorry.
Thank you for watching this episode of Discographies. Click the thumbs up button below if you liked it, and if you want to be notified when the next episode comes out, consider subscribing. Comment below with characters you would like to see us cover. Further reading and references are linked in the description. We hope to see you in another Discography.